on Good and Evil Spirits. Adapted from The Secret Mysteries of Ceremonial Magic in Francis Barrett's The Magus, 1801. Part 1. Of the Annoyance of Evil Spirits and the Preservation we have from Good Spirits. It is the opinion of divines that all evil spirits are of that nature that they hate God as well as man. Therefore, divine providence has set over us more pure spirits, with whom he hath entrusted us, as with shepherds and governors, that they should daily help us, and drive away evil spirits from us, and curb and restrain them, that they should not hurt us, as they would otherwise, as is read in Tobias, that Raphael did apprehend the demon called Asmodeus, and bound him in the wilderness of Upper Egypt. Of these, Hesiod says there are 30,000 of Jupiter's immortal spirits living on the earth, who are the keepers of mortal men, who, that they might observe justice and merciful deeds, having clothed themselves with air, go to and fro everywhere on the earth. For no potentate could be safe, nor any woman continue uncorrupted. No man in this vale of ignorance could come to the end appointed to him by God, if good spirits did not secure us, or if evil spirits should be permitted to satisfy the wills of men. As, therefore, among the good, there is a proper keeper or protector deputed to every one, corroborating the spirit of man to good, so of evil spirits there is sent forth an enemy ruling over the flesh and desire thereof, and the good spirits fight for us as a preserver against the enemy and flesh. Now man, between these contenders, is in the middle, and left in the hand of his own counsel, to whom he will give victory. We cannot therefore accuse angels, or deny free will, if they do not bring the nations entrusted to them to the knowledge of the true God, and true piety, but suffer them to fall into errors and perverse worship. It is to be imputed to themselves, who have, of their own accord, declined from the right path, adhering to the spirits of error, giving victory to the devil. For it is in the hand of man to adhere to whom he pleases, and overcome whom he will, by whom, if once the devil be overcome, he is made his servant, and being overcome, cannot fight any more with another, as a wasp that has lost his sting. To which opinion Origen assents in his book Periarchon, concluding that the saints fight against evil spirits, and overcoming do lessen their army. As therefore there is given to every man a good spirit, so there is given to every man an evil, diabolical spirit, whereof each seeks a union with our spirit, and endeavors to attract it to itself, and to be mixed with it, as wine with water. The good, indeed, through all good works conformable to itself, change us into angels, by uniting us, as it is written of John the Baptist in Malachi, "Behold, I send my angel before thy face," of which transmutation and union it is written elsewhere, "He that adheres to God is made one spirit with him." An evil spirit also, by evil works, studies to make us conformable to itself, and unite us, as Christ says of Judas, "Have not I chosen 12, and one of you is a devil?" And this is that which Hermes says, "When a spirit hath influence on the soul of man, he scatters the seed of his own notion, whence such a soul, being sown with seeds, and full of fury, brings forth thence wonderful things, and whatsoever are the offices of spirits. For when a good spirit hath influence on a holy soul, it does exalt it to the light of wisdom. But an evil spirit, being transfused into a wicked soul, doth stir it up to theft, to manslaughter, to lust, and whatsoever are the offices of evil spirits. Good spirits, as Iamblichus says, purge the souls more perfectly, and some bestow upon us other good things. They, being present, do give health to the body, virtue to the soul, and security. What is mortal in us, they take away, cherish heat, and make it more efficacious to life, and by a harmony do always infuse light into an intelligible mind. But whether there be many keepers of a man, or one alone, theologians differ among themselves. We think there are more, the prophets saying, He hath given his angels a charge concerning thee, that they should keep thee in all thy ways, which, as Jerome says, is to be understood of any man, as well as of Christ. All men, therefore, are governed by the ministry of different angels, and are brought to any degree of virtue, deserts, and dignity, who behave themselves worthy of them. But they who carry themselves unworthy of them are deposed and thrust down, as well by evil spirits as by good spirits, unto the lowest degree of misery, as their evil merits shall require. But they that are attributed to the sublimer angels are preferred before other men, for angels, having the care of them, exalt them, and subject others to them by a certain occult power, which, although neither of them perceive, yet he that is subjected feels a certain yoke of precedency, of which he cannot easily quit himself. Yea, he fears and reverences that power which the superior angels make to flow upon inferiors, and with a certain terror bring the inferiors into a fear of precedency. This did Homer seem to be sensible of when he says that the Muses begot of Jupiter did always, as inseparable companions, assist the kings begot of Jupiter, speaking figuratively, who by them were made venerable and magnificent. So we read that Marcus Antoninus, being formerly joined in singular friendship with Octavius Augustus, were accustomed always to play together. But when, as always, Augustus always went away conqueror, a certain magician counseled Marcus Antoninus thus: O Anthony, what dost thou do with that young man? Shun and avoid him, for although thou art older than he, and art more skilful than he, and art better descended than he, and hath endured the wars of more emperors, yet thy genius doth much dread the genius of this young man, and thy fortune flatters his fortune. Unless thou shalt shun him, it seems wholly to decline to him. Is not the prince like other men? How should other men fear and reverence him unless a divine terror should exalt him, and striking fear into others, depress them that they should reverence him as prince? Wherefore we must endeavor that, being purified by doing well, and following sublime things, and choosing opportune times and seasons, we be entrusted or committed to a degree of sublimer and more potent angels, who, taking care of us, we may deservedly be preferred before others. Part 2. That there is a threefold keeper of man, and from whence each of them proceed. Every man hath a threefold good demon as a proper keeper or preserver. The one whereof is holy, another of the nativity, and the other of profession. The holy demon is one, according to the doctrine of the Egyptians, assigned to the rational soul, not from the stars or planets, but from a supernatural cause, from God himself, the president of demons, being universal and above nature. This directs the life of the soul, and does always put good thoughts into the mind, being always active in illuminating us, although we do not always take notice of it. But when we are purified and live peaceably, then it is perceived by us. Then it does, as it were, speak with us, and communicates its voice to us, being before silent, and studies daily to bring us to a sacred perfection. So it falls out that some profit more in any science or art or office, in less time and with little pain, when another takes much pain and studies hard, and all in vain. And although no science, art, or virtue is to be contemned, yet that you may live prosperously, carry on thy affairs happily. In the first place, know thy good genius, and his nature, and what good the celestial disposition promises thee, and God, the distributor of all these, who distributes to each as he pleases, and follow the beginnings of these, profess these, and be conversant in that virtue to which the Most High Distributor doth elevate and lead thee. He who made Abraham excel in justice and clemency, Isaac with fear, Jacob with strength, Moses with meekness and miracles, Joshua in war, Phineas in zeal, David in religion and victory, Solomon in knowledge and fame, Peter in faith, John in charity, Jacob in devotion, Thomas in prudence, Magdalene in contemplation, and Martha in officiousness. Therefore, in what virtue you think you can most easily be a proficient in, use diligence to attain to the height thereof, that you may excel in one when in many you cannot. But in the rest, endeavor to be as great a proficient as you can. But if thou shalt have the overseers of nature and religion agreeable, thou shalt find a double progress of thy nature and profession. But if they shall be disagreeing, follow the better, for thou shalt better perceive at some time a preserver of an excellent profession than of nativity. Part 3. Of the tongue of angels, and of their speaking amongst themselves and with us. We might doubt whether angels or demons, since they are pure spirits, use any vocal speech or tongue among themselves, or to us, but that Paul, in some places, says, "If I speak with the tongue of men or angels." But what their speech or tongue is much doubted by many. For many think that if they use any idiom, it is Hebrew, because that was first of all, and came from heaven, and was before the confusion of languages in Babylon, in which the law was given by God the Father, and the gospel was preached by Christ the Son, and so many oracles were given to the prophets by the Holy Ghost. And seeing all tongues have and do undergo various mutations and corruptions, this alone does always continue inviolated. Moreover, an evident sign of this opinion is that though this demon and intelligence do use the speech of those nations with whom they do inhabit, yet to them who understand it, they never speak in any idiom, but in this alone, namely Hebrew. But now, how angels speak is hid from us, as they themselves are. Now, to us that we may speak, a tongue is necessary, with other instruments, as the jaws, palate, lips, teeth, throat, lungs, the aspera artery, and the muscles of the breast, which have the beginning of motion from the soul. But if I speak at a distance to another, he must use a louder voice. But if near, he whispers in my ear, as if he should be coupled to the hearer without any noise, as an image in the eye or glass. So souls going out of the body, so angels, so demons speak. And what man does with a sensible voice, they do by impressing the conception of the speech in those to whom they speak after a better manner than if they should express it in an audible voice. So the Platonist says that Socrates perceived his demon by sense, indeed, but not of this body, but by the sense of the ethereal body concealed in this, after which manner Avicenna believes the angels were wont to be seen and heard by the prophets. That instrument, whatsoever the virtue be, by which one spirit makes known to another spirit what things are in his mind, is called by the Apostle Paul the tongue of angels. Yet oftentimes they send forth an audible voice, as they that cried at the ascension of the Lord, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye here gazing unto heaven? And in the old law they spake with divers of the fathers, with a sensible voice, but this never except when they assumed bodies. But with what senses these spirits and demons hear our invocations and prayers, and see our ceremonies, we are altogether ignorant. For there is a spiritual body of demons everywhere sensible by nature, so that it touches, sees, hears without any medium, and nothing can be an impediment to it. Yet they do not perceive after the same manner as we do, with different organs, but haply as sponges drink in water, so do they, all sensible things with their body, or some other way unknown to us. Neither are all animals endowed with those organs, for we know that many want ears, yet we know they perceive a sound, but after what manner we know not. Part 4. Of the names of spirits, and their various imposition, and of the spirits that are set over the stars, signs, corners of the heaven, and the elements. Many and different are the names of good and bad spirits, but their proper and true names, as those of the stars, are known to God alone, who only numbers the multitude of stars, and calls them by their names, whereof none can be known to us, but by divine revelation, for very few are expressed to us in sacred writ. But the masters of the Hebrews think that the names of angels are imposed on them by Adam, according to that which is written, The Lord brought all things which he had made unto Adam, that he should name them, and as he called any thing, so the name of it was. Hence the Hebrew Mekubals think, together with the magicians and Kabbalists, that it is in the power of man to impose names upon spirits, but of such a man only who is dignified and elevated to this virtue by some divine gift or sacred authority. But because a name that may express the nature of divinity or the whole virtue of angelical essences cannot be made by any human voice, therefore names for the most part are put upon them from their works, signifying some certain office or effect which is required by the choir of spirit. Which name then, and not otherwise, obtains efficacy and virtue to draw any spiritual substance from above or beneath to make any desired effect. I have seen and known some writings on virgin parchment, the name and seal of some spirit in the hour of the moon, which afterwards he gave to be devoured by a water frog, and had muttered over some verse, the frog being let go into the water, rains and showers presently followed. I saw also the same man inscribing the name of another spirit with the seal thereof in the hour of Mars, which was given to a crow, who, being let go, after a verse muttered over, there followed from that part of heaven, whither it flew, lightnings, shaking, and horrible thunders, with thick clouds. Neither were those names of spirits of an unknown tongue, neither did they signify anything else but their offices. Of this kind are the names of those angels, Raziel, Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, and Haniel, which is as much as to say the vision of God, the virtue of God, the strength of God, the medicine of God, and the glory of God. In like manner, in the offices of evil demons are read their names, namely, a player, a deceiver, a dreamer, a fornicator, and many such like. So we receive from many of the ancient fathers of the Hebrews the names of the angels set over the planets and signs. Over Saturn, Zaphiel. Over Jupiter, Zadkiel. Over Mars, Camael. Over the Sun, Raphael. Over Venus, Haniel. Over Mercury, Michael. And over the Moon, Gabriel. These are those 7 spirits which always stand before the face of God, to whom is entrusted the disposing the whole celestial and terrene kingdoms which are under the moon. For these, as the more curious theologians say, govern all things by a certain vicissitude of hours, days, and years, as the astrologers teach concerning the planets which they are set over, which Mercurius Trismegistus calls the 7 governors of the world, who, by the heavens as by instruments, distribute the influence of all the stars and signs upon their inferiors. There are some who ascribe them to the stars by names somewhat differing, saying that over Saturn is set an intelligence called Oriphael, over Jupiter, Zachariel, over Mars, Zamael, over the Sun, Michael, over Venus, Anael, over Mercury, Raphael, and over the Moon, Gabriel. And every one of these governs the world 354 years and 4 months, and the government begins from the intelligence of Saturn, afterwards, in order, the intelligences of Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, the Moon, and the Sun reign. Then the government returns to the spirit of Saturn. End of On Good and Evil Spirits. Adapted from The Secret Mysteries of Ceremonial Magic in Francis Barrett's The Magus, 1801. If you would like to support more work such as this, please visit patreon.com/themodernhermeticist. And above all, thank you for listening.